Well, hello, wonderful family. Once again, we get here together joyfully, dancefully, beautifully to be together and bring this incredible group together and appreciating as usual, our precious Amy Hardison, which I think it's her birthday today, isn't it? Right? Am I right? Amy's birthday today?
It's
Hold on, there is.
tomorrow.
Oh, it's tomorrow. Okay, it's
Yes.
tomorrow birthday.
In
Close.
some parts of the country, yes.
Yeah,
Or in some
exactly.
parts of the world, it is her birthday already. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
what a blessing to have this beautiful lady in our lives with her knowledge, with her joy of writing and blessing all of us. And of course, Alan D. Thompson with his incredible research, and our precious Steve Hardison that is every time he's in touch with us, or even not, when you read the book, we get all pumped up, encouraged, feel the love that this incredible man has for the whole humanity. And it's so fantastic in this book that it's the book of being and entitled as the ultimate coach. And we're blessed to be here, all of us, and our fabulous readers. My goodness, our Sachin Sharma, all the way from England. Not that he's in England right now, but we just wanted to say, like, we feel like saying that you came from London here to just read for us. But I know he's in Arizona right now. Am I right, Sachin?
Yes,
And
indeed. I'm here in Arizona.
perfect. And the beautiful Kathleen Putter. You guys have honored us to accept and want to read for us. It's fabulous to have you here. And we certainly don't take that lightly. And we're grateful for your presence and your reading. And how wonderful it is that we're here and we learn to read and share about ourselves. And we kindly ask you, when you want to share about you. This is all about you. And I want to not mess it up. So I'm going to read it, that I know what Byron Katie said, which I love. And it was Byron Katie, I love this woman. I was at her workshop for 10 days last March, and I came back somebody else. And she says, all we experience about anyone else is the idea that we have of them. So please be aware and only share about yourself. And it's all about you. If you want to acknowledge anybody, you know how to do that privately in your own timing. But let's respect this gathering that we are here for us, for you, and is about this book, and leave the acknowledgement outside of here. And I really would love to know if you could possibly share in the chat if you have had the most grateful lesson that you've had from the Ultimate Coach altogether. And if you care to share, please write it in the chat so we can all read it and we can all learn. Or I know Sachin is, I'm not sure about the rest, if anybody has had a brilliant, the blessing of being coached by Steve, and something that has always stayed with you that you can actually share in the chat. Would be lovely to hear it. And as I am talking and I cannot write, being the ADHD, I cannot write and read and talk all of it at the same time. But what I've got that is on that wall up there, that it always stay with me, about what Steve says, is that if you don't do, if what you do doesn't give you life, it takes your life away. So make sure what you do gives you life. That is big and huge on the wall in my office. And I read that all the time. And when I am dealing with people, I always read that. Is that giving me life, or is that taking life away from me? So that's my one big, huge lesson that I've got from the Ultimate Coach. And David Blox's commitment. My heart is a sacred and a holy place, like my own. Beautiful. We're always being, and we are creating through who we are being. Yes. Steve saying, it's perfect just like you. I haven't yet formally coached with him. Oh yeah, of course. What a joy. So this is a massive list, and Sishin says best lesson from QC, seeing that there is no planning required when you're cultivating your state of being. Amen. And so much more that it's wonderful to read it in your own timing. Nasira, listen with your being, listen to what's being said and listen to what's not be said. I am creator. All of it is phenomenal. And if you just, sometimes what I do is I just take one chapter and I do one line and I read it so many times. And after a while, I become it or it becomes me, one of the two. It has gotten me to be where I am with me today, and only because of the Ultimate Coach book, only because of all the learning that we've had through this amazing place, amazing space. So once again, it's fabulous to have you all here. Thank you for being here and wanting to enjoy this space with us. And we're all, as a Team Talk, we're honored to be here and be of service to you guys. And I love to pass it on to the gorgeous moderator too, our beautiful Elizabeth. Take over, pretty face, and bless us.
Oh, thank you so much, Fari. I don't know about you guys, but I am super excited for tonight's book reading. I have had an opportunity to connect with both of these amazing readers who are our guests this evening, Sashin and Kathy, and I cannot wait to see what experiences and what gold is coming our way from their shares and just being in this space. But in addition to that, I want to thank each and every one of you for showing up and just being here with us tonight to grow your being as well. So at this point, if any of you have the actual physical copy of the book, I would love to see it. So I want to know who's here, who wants to be reading. I gotta switch over to page 2 and see who's on the second side. We got all kinds of books tonight. Is there anybody who's joining us for the first time? If so, I would love for you to raise your hand or put your electronic hand up. I think I saw Patricia real quick throw her hand up. Yay! And then Nasira, this is your first time as well? Oh my goodness. That is awesome. Awesome. So, since we have a couple newbies, I would love to offer the opportunity for you to share with us this evening if you'd be interested in reading. We usually have one person read the back cover of the book, and then we have another reader read the first 2 pages of the book. Would you two be willing to read for us this evening? If not, that's totally okay. We'll take volunteers.
Yeah, sure.
Perfect. Would you like to read the back of the book?
Yes, I'd love to. Thank you.
Okay. Patricia, would
First
you
of
be
all,
willing? Yep,
sorry.
you'll just read the back of the book here in just a few minutes. Patricia, would you be willing to read the first 2 pages of the book? No? Okay, that's fine. Then I have somebody volunteer. I saw David Block's hand go up first. So David, I'll let you read those first 2 pages, and then we will let our readers take over from there. So to remind you, what we do is we ask you that when you're reading, read about yourself. When you're listening, listen about yourself. And then when we share later on, we'll let you share about yourself and how it impacted you and what came up for you. And then while they're reading the back of the book and the first 2 pages, if there's a question that comes up for you that's really resonating with you, feel free to drop that into our chat and then just reflect on that. So with that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to just let Nasira read the back. As soon as she's done reading the back, then we'll go into David reading the first 2 pages, and then we'll go right into our readers, Kathy and Sashin. So we will get started. So we'll get you unmuted and you can take it away, Nasira.
Good morning, everybody. I'm actually reaching out to all of you all with love from India. And here I go. Dear potential reader, as you may have noticed, there are no testimonials on the back cover of this book imploring you to read it. I voted that. The only testimonial I'm interested in is the one you will have from reading and experiencing this book. Please do not read this book about me. Read this book about you. Read it about being. Read, as you read, ask yourself, who would I need to be a more loving person? Who would I need to be a more effective parent? Who would I need to be to create a level of confidence that is remarkable? Who would I need to be at peace with who I am? Who would I need to be fully in love with myself and my life? Who would I need to be to live the most extraordinary life I can live? I promise you that if you read this book with the intention of expanding your state of being, you will do exactly that. Your experience will be remarkable. Who you are being is everything. Loving you, be blessed, be you. Steve Hardison.
Before you begin, Steve Hardison, I never wanted to write a book, and I haven't. I never wanted to have a book written about me, but here it is. This book is a gift from my wife, Amy, who wrote it, and my friend, Alan D. Thompson, who conducted the research and interviews on which it is based. And it's not just a gift to me, but to you too. And now you're reading it. So with your permission, I'll give you some suggestions on how to read it. You see, this isn't an ordinary book. It's not simply a biography. It's not a self-help book. It's not a literary classic. It's definitely not a book about how to coach. In fact, it's not a book about doing anything. It's a book about being. And it's a book about you. To access this book, ask yourself these questions as you read. Who am I being as a partner, parent, or friend? Who am I being as a leader? Who am I being as a member of my community? Who would I need to be to have miracles show up in my daily life? Who would I need to be to create value in the work? Who would I need to be to generate a life of abundance? Who would I need to be to alter my relationship with fear? Who would I need to be at peace with my past? Who would I need to be to step powerfully into my future? Who would I need to be present as a way of being? Who would I need to be to live the most extraordinary life I can live? Who would I need to be to know that my life makes a difference? Who would I need to be fully in love with myself and my life? Who would I need to be to improve my relationships with the most important people in my life? Who would I need to be to read The Ultimate Coach and have a personal breakthrough in being wonderful me? The best part of this book about you, is that it is endless. The story goes on, and it's written by your being. Loving you, be blessed, be you, Steve Hardison.
Chapter 24, the coaching experience. Now, I've got a bit of a cough, so I'm going to mute myself periodically to save you the coughing in your ear. I'll be reading from page 181 to 190. Oh, yeah, all the way through. The first time I went to Steve Hardison's house, I was with Steve Chandler's ACS, Advanced Client Systems Group. As much as I wanted to be present, I was in my mind about meeting this $200,000 coach. I'm going to walk into his house and I'm going to levitate, right? So mused Devin Banderson. What is it like to coach with Steve Hardison? There's talk on the street. He yells, he is intense, he throws people into his swimming pool. He will see into your soul. You will be transformed. He is like no other human being on the planet. Of course, people exaggerate. He has never thrown a client into a swimming pool, and you won't levitate. In considering the coaching experience, it is well to keep Iyanla's words in mind. Nothing that anyone has said, can say, or would say can describe the experience of coaching with Steve Hardison. Every experience is unique and authentic to who you are and what your spirit needs. Not your mind, your heart, not even your soul, but your spirit. Consequently, Steve's coaching is the proverbial elephant with the blind man. Your experience depends on what part of the elephant you touch. Some clients get the tail, some get the ear, and some get the tusk. Coachable clients usually touch the soft ear of the elephant. Jared Shager says, I don't think he has an angry bone in his body. Norma Bachura says, I don't see Steve as that intense. I see him as a very soft guy. He is very sharp, but he is primarily gentle, as far as I'm concerned. My experience with him is that he is the gentlest person I have ever been with. Sometimes Steve and his clients hit a sticky spot. The harder Steve has to work to get a client to hear him, the more he ratchets up. The resistance changes his delivery. Jason Jaggard says, Steve's the only guy I know who can yell at you and be in love with you at the same time. Excuse me. Sometimes there is so much love that Amy can hear the ruckus at the other end of the house. It's the tusk. Shanti Zimmerman has heard from many people that Hardison yells. She is okay with that. She observes, he might have yelled in my presence, but I never felt like he was yelling at me. He's just really committed. There's no filter. He lays it out there. That is care, whether you get the blazing side or the softer side. In spite of the fact that each person's experience is unique, there are some constants in coaching with Hardison. It is those constants that comprise this chapter. Some things, however, are too fundamental and too ample to share chapter space. They get their own chapters, which follow. The experience. Sitting with Steve in his office is not just a coaching session. It is an experience. Teresa Welding says, when I met Steve, I was taken by his intensity and his directness. He leaned in and said, I want you to remember these words. As it's turned out, I don't specifically remember the words he said, but I remember the energy with which he said them. The experience was seared into my person, or my spirit, if you want to call it that. Sorry about that. I forgot I can't unmute if I cough. All right. When it stopped sizzling, Teresa was left with this extra loving presence. Alison Watts first heard of Steve Hardison from Steve Chandler and Jason Goldberg. She was intrigued. She says, after watching some videos and checking Steve out, I said to myself, I want to have a be with session one day. just to have an experience with this guy. A Be With session is the first meeting with Steve, where for 2 hours he is with you and you are with him to explore who you are, why you are with him, and how he might be able to serve you. About 3 years later, as my birthday approached, my family asked me several times what I wanted for my 50th. Birthdays are not usually a big thing in my house, but because it was my 50th, my family was relentless in asking what I wanted. Thank goodness. And then it came to me. I knew what I wanted. A Be With session with Steve Hardison. Happy birthday to me. Best birthday gift ever. I traveled from Costa Rica, where I live, to Mesa, Arizona for my Be With session. It was indeed powerful. It was powerful because of who Steve is, not anything he did. I remember my husband asking about it afterwards, and I couldn't really tell him anything that had happened, just that I saw, heard, and felt pure mastery that day. During those 2 hours, I shared space with a man who is clear about who he is and so clear about who I am that it affected me. Just being in the presence of that level of clarity changed me, and I wanted more of that. Coach Devin Banderson uses a basketball metaphor to describe his experience. If Kobe Bryant was going to go sit with Jerry West or Michael Jordan, he wouldn't say, "Hey, Michael, hey, Jerry, tell me how you do this move or that move." He would just be in their presence and absorb them. I wanted to sit in the essence of who Steve Hardison is and experience that. Michael Sower, one of the elite coaches in the United Kingdom, says, "My coaching style has never been just sitting there. I do move around, but not as much as Steve. I remember having a session with him. He's sitting in his chair talking to me, and the next thing I know, he's right in my face. I thought, I love this." Michael recounts his experience of being in Rome and going to a performance of Mozart's Requiem. Everyone was crammed into the back rows of this beautiful church, while the first row was completely open. So Michael sat front and center. He had the single most profound musical experience of his life. Sitting with Steve was a similar experience. It was the most profound coaching experience of his life, and it was like having a front row seat while watching one of the greats perform in front of me. I would argue that an individual could be more impacted by spending just 10 minutes with Steve than by having a whole coaching program with most of the coaches on the planet. His presence and his state of being are on another level. A visceral experience. Many people have strong visceral responses when meeting or working with Steve. Greg Hiller, a pro golfer, met Steve in 2003 on a golf course in Tempe, Arizona. He says, "Steve and I met through fate. I was traveling through Phoenix and met Steve at the ASU, Arizona State University, Karsten Golf Course. I had never heard of a personal coach before. After being around Steve for a very short time, I knew I needed to spend time with him. I will never forget the first session, the sight, the smell, the emotion, everything." Dr. Aaron Beans says, "My first session sitting with Steve was what Luke Skywalker must have felt when sitting with Yoda for the first time. There was something about him that touched a very deep place within me. It was so powerful that it rattled my soul while pulling me forward at the same time." Tom McGovern became aware of Steve through Dusan Dukic. Tom traveled from California to meet Steve. After having sandwiches in Steve's kitchen, Steve invited Tom into his office. Tom says, "We sat down and he started talking. Within 2 to 5 minutes, I'm crying my eyes out. I don't know why. Well, I do know why. It touched me in a way that I hadn't been touched in a really long time. Within half an hour, I left and I called Dusan. He said, 'What do you think?' I said, 'I got to do it.' 'Do what?' 'I got to coach with that guy. I just got to do it.' Before I met with Steve, I had no intention of flying from California to Arizona on a weekly basis. I wouldn't even consider it. After our first meeting, I signed up and went to see him for 2 years. In London, Martine Cannon learned of Steve Hardison from her husband, now ex-husband. She relates. My ex-husband is a coach, and he knew of Steve Hardison through Steve Chandler. One day, he was looking at Steve Hardison's website, and he said, "Hey, listen to these testimonials." And then he read them out. I said to him, "I'm going to give him a call and have a conversation." He said, "You can't just call him up. This is Steve Hardison. This guy has a waiting list for coaching, and he charges X, Y, and Z." "What do you mean? Of course I can call him up," I said. I sent him a message saying I'd like to talk to him. Within 15 minutes, I got a message back saying he could talk to me the next afternoon at 2 o'clock. I called him at the allocated time. On that phone call, I couldn't work out why he was so special. He didn't appear special. There was nothing in the way that he communicated with me, apart from what appeared to be on the surface an overly confident, bordering on arrogant sense of self that had me think, whoa, either he is a complete salesman or I'm missing something here. Other people are seeing something in him that I haven't yet seen. And that's what took me over for a Be With session. I was in Arizona 11 days later. As I sat in my Be With session, I was thinking, I have no idea why people say all these things about you. But my heart was engaged in a completely different experience. My heart wanted to sob a million tears. After that session, I straight away sent him a message saying I would like to be a client. I didn't know how I was going to pay for it, but I made the commitment. I was willing to sell my house or do whatever it took because of what I was experiencing in my heart. Over time, my head caught up with my heart. Presence. One of the hallmarks of the coaching experience is Steve's laser focus. Michael Shantz says, "I felt somehow that his strong light had singed a hole in me. For those 2 hours, I was given his undivided attention, heartfelt listening, and unconditional support. In short, I was engulfed with love. There are very few places on this earth where that level of intimacy and trust are available." Michael signed up for 100 hours of coaching and found that Steve brought the same vigor to each and every coaching session. Lisa Berkovitz had a similar experience. He is so present, it feels like there is literally no one else on the planet. He said, "So tell me everything. Who are you?" I started to tell him my story, and he was fascinated. He was alive and present with those piercing eyes. Tom McGovern says, there is that feeling that people talk about, the feeling that you're the only one in the room. All that is true. All his attention was focused on me. He was 100% committed to me. That's quite a feeling. This intense focus goes both ways. For Steve, it is his way of being. For his clients, it is their way to suck the marrow out of their sessions. Teresa Walding says, it goes fast. 2 hours is like a blink and you're done. You want to take in every single moment of it, John Patrick Morgan explains. Steve doesn't allow anyone to record a session. I hate it and I love it. I wish that I had the recordings, and I love that I don't, because it demanded a presence of me that had me get so much more out of the work when we were together. Clients can take notes, but it's optional. Steve is very clear that the most important thing going on is the experience. It is about having a shift in being that changes how the client sees and then acts in the world. It is not about consulting notes and remembering what Steve said. Clients get that in time. Clients get that in time. At the beginning of their coaching, about 70% of Steve's clients take notes. At the end of their coaching, only 10% do. Tom McGovern lost the notebook that contained the majority of his notes from his 2 years of coaching with Steve. It was okay. What I was left with is life is about who you are being, not what you're doing. If I'm getting off track, I go back to who am I being in this situation? Or who do I need to be in this situation? I can be anyone I need to be. I'm not a fixed identity. That is one of the most valuable things I got from my coaching. The heart of the matter. Steve has a very unique ability to get right to the heart of the issue, says Scott Parker. That is well and good when Steve is working with you, with your spouse or your friend or your business partner. When it is your heart and your issue, it can be disconcerting, especially when you experience the speed with which he can do it. Steve Chandler says, for an average coach, or even a good coach, it takes a year or two to really uncover your client's limiting beliefs, because clients don't reveal them very easily. They're insecure about them to begin with, but Hardison sees them immediately. That is why Iyanla talks about showing up naked. That is why Scott Parker says, you can't bullshit Steve to save your life. You might think you are, but you're not. Steve has no problem calling someone on their stuff, none whatsoever. As Carla Rottering found out, she says, excuse me, Steve knows if you're getting slippery. I had something happen with my partner in my practice. My partner had done something that was actually pretty unethical. I was terrified of confronting him. I'm not sure why, because I am the one who founded the practice. But there was something that was creating a lot of fear for me about confronting him with this. I made an agreement with Steve that I would talk to him. In my very first session with Steve, he said, look, I keep agreements. I expect you to keep agreements. If the Queen of England called and said, I want to see you at 11 a.m. on Thursday morning, I would say to her, sorry, I have a commitment with Carla. So I made this agreement with Steve that I would talk to my partner. I went back to my next session and Steve said, how did the conversation go? I said, I couldn't figure out a time to sit down with him. I was so busy. So I sent him this letter instead. Steve leaned over and looked at me and said, that is not the truth. Of course, it wasn't the truth. It absolutely wasn't the truth. We worked in the same office. We worked in the same hospital. We were partners. But all my excuses felt very real to me until that moment when he said, that is not the truth. He continued, that is not even believable, not even close to believable. And he was right. That was the only time I ever remember getting really squirmy with him. I was uncomfortable. I couldn't get comfortable in the chair. I felt like I needed to fix the moment, and fixing was not available. There was just being in it for that period of time. I still have that tendency to want to skirt around something that I don't want to do face to face. In those moments, I remember Steve's words. That's not the truth. That's not even believable. Not even close to believable. That has been powerful for me. Self-discovery. Oh, sorry.
Are you reading that or am I?
No, I'm good. I'm good. You can take over.
Is it? Am I right or did I get it mixed up? Okay. Self-discovery. Steve works with amazing people. They are successful, capable, enlightened, and intelligent. It would be easy to walk into a coaching session thinking that all they needed was a little tweaking, but Steve doesn't tweak. Stephen McGee relates, after our USM connection, I reached out to Steve. We had a couple of conversations by phone. You know how that is. It's just profound. Steve would say something like, tell me who you are. Now, I'm a pretty conscious guy. I've been around the block a few times. I have degrees in spiritual psychology and consciousness, health and healing, and I've been an ecumenical minister forever. I feel pretty present. So when Steve asked me to tell him who I am, I launched into some automatic dialogue. And he said, no, I want to know who you are. The layers that we would explore in these conversations were so profound. Diving deep into the essence of a person's being often goes deeper than his or her awareness. Gary Geetz, one of Steve's early clients, writes, the most profound gift Steve gave me was to shine a light on a way of being that had formed everything about me since childhood. The crazy thing is that I didn't even know it was there. Wanting people to think highly of me secretly drove every part of who I was, what I did, and the daily choices I made. It caused me to place acceptance over integrity, appearance over substance, illusion over authenticity. It ran everything. I didn't even know it existed until Steve woke me up. He allowed me to see it and choose another way of being. We created a new game, one that I could actually win. When signing up to work with Steve, self-discovery is always on the agenda. Rich Litvin recalls his experience. Before I began working with Steve, I got clear that I didn't want to spend a year working on how to create money. I'll be honest, that wasn't easy. But I didn't want to pay a lot of money to my coach only to learn how to make it back. So Steve coached me around the deepest stuff, why I've lacked confidence for so much of my life, why I struggled around money no matter how much I earned, why I had a constant need for approval, why I couldn't even hear people's acknowledgments, why I showed up as powerless, why I was afraid to be a leader. Excavating your identity is not always easy. Sometimes the things you work on are scary or not so pretty, says Greg Hiller. But Steve will help you through all of it and love you through all of it. The result may be profound peace or freedom or pure exhilaration. Ali True says of his Be With session, the result of being with Steve is more love, more power, more Ali-ness. I have upgraded my clients, my business, and my life. I have a deeper sense of who I really am. Aaron Bennis observes, for so long, I felt uncomfortable being me, being in my own skin. No matter how much work I did, there were still parts of me that didn't feel comfortable, didn't feel safe, didn't feel okay being out in the world. The biggest blessing Steve has given me is getting me to see myself and to finally feel comfortable standing in the space of who I really am. When Steve asked Daniel Harner what he would like to work on in their time together, Daniel thought of Michelangelo standing before a block of marble and seeing David. He told Steve he wanted to be his true self, the God-created self that exists when the wounds, the baggage, the fear, and the pain have all been chipped away. I don't want anything else in my life because if I had that, I would have everything. Steve specializes in that kind of work. Openness. You know that Steve's human, right? Said Carla Rotering. It's foolish to think that Steve has been spared the expense of being human. It would be a mistake to believe that he hasn't bumped into hard times and grief and loss and pain and sorrow and fear and suffering and all of the things that contribute to what it is to be on the planet as a human being. What is extraordinary is that he doesn't hide that experience from anyone. John Veer remembers beginning one session by asking Steve how he was doing. Steve said, "Man, I just got in this crazy argument with my wife, and it's really wearing on me." Was John disappointed that his coach had feet of clay? On the contrary, John thought it was really cool. He reflects, most people do the "I'm brilliant, I'm awesome, I'm amazing" thing. That wouldn't disclose I just got in an argument with my wife. Such candor creates a space for the client to be fearlessly authentic. In Creating Relationships, Steve Chandler writes, when I first started working with Steve Hardison, I remember trying to get up the courage to tell him about some of the messes I had made of my life during my younger days when I was drinking and causing trouble everywhere I went. He could see that it was hard for me to talk about these things, so he stopped me. Okay, I understand. Is it okay if I talk about something else for a minute? He asked. Sure, I said, glad to be changing the subject. And then Steve launched into a series of stories that stood my hair on end. stories from his own life about ways he had strayed from the straight and narrow as a wild youth. I was stunned because here he was, a business consultant, impeccably dressed and respected by the top CEOs across the world, and he was describing a past that sounded like a script to rebel without a cause. By the time he was finished, I was liberated. I was free to talk, and boy, did I want to, because here was a person who would understand. There isn't anything you could tell me about yourself that would cause me to think poorly of you, Steve laughed. There isn't anything you've ever done or thought about doing that would ever reduce my commitment to you, my love for you, and my promise to help you become as great as you can be. Nothing would shock me. Nothing would be a negative to me ever. And it was at that moment I opened up and became more or less teachable. Extreme coaching. It is very relaxing to be with Steve Chandler, says Daniel Harner. He is like the wise grandfather that is mellow and laid back. He's very wise, he's slow and deliberate, and communicates with such delicate and skillful expression. I wouldn't call being with Steve Hardison relaxing. His mind works so fast. It's very energizing, but you are also aware that you might just get your head cut off in a loving way. Billy Woodmansee put it this way: Steve Hardison is a lot like a wolverine, which is, pound for pound, one of the most ferocious animals on the planet. What happens when you take a wolverine and put him in a cage or an office? Ask Daniel Harner. He relates. Steve's coaching is not just formal, professional dialogue. He gets animated. He walks around, he paces, he screams, not at me, but just out there at his bookshelf or at the universe. You feel, okay, he's stepping into his energy right now, and it's really strong. And then he sits down and we keep talking. No doubt, Steve generates an energy field, and sometimes it is high voltage. That doesn't work for some people. Others thrive. John Patrick Morgan said, intensity is familiar to me. I can relate to it. When Steve got fired up and started shouting, I had no fear. My mom's family is Italian, and my holidays are everybody yelling at each other. So I thought it was fun. It was more than fun. In the middle of one experience, when Steve's yelling hit high decibels, John Patrick thought, I don't ever think I've felt this loved or cared for. It was an awesome experience. Carla Rotering says, I have witnessed Steve's fierceness. I've not experienced it personally with him. I've never had that. I've also never had a fear of that. If I've encountered Steve with fierceness, it would absolutely calm me. Wait, if I encountered Steve with that fierceness, it would absolutely calm me. It would absolutely draw me forward into the flame, because fire is not a bad thing. Sacred moments. Steve is a whirlwind of passion and power. He is brash, bold, and big, but underneath all that power and energy lies a tender heart. He falls in love with every client. He is deeply moved by their magnificence and their courage. His awe triggers tears. The trust, the love, the bearing of souls, and the shared commitment all work together to create transcendent moments. Carla Rotering shares one of hers. I remember a time when the depth of my work with Steve had gone beyond what I ever anticipated. Such moments are holy. Ordinary moments with Steve can also be holy, but there are some profound moments. And the truth is, I don't really recall what this one was about, but I remember the words he said right before the experience. He said to me, if you could see how close you are, all you have to do is tilt forward an immeasurable amount and you would be there. because you are already there. And then he put music on. He got out of his chair, he held my hands, and he knelt in front of me, and he wept for the whole duration of this piece of music by Kirtana. That was one of the most profound experiences of my life because of the level of connection, sacredness, and love. The post game. People process their experiences with Steve differently. John Patrick Morgan shared his method. The way I approached my 100 hours with Steve was like I had just gotten into a PhD program at Harvard or onto a top football team with the best coach in the league. My session was my opportunity to gain extremely valuable insight. To get the most out of it, I trained the shit out of it before my next session. Steve wouldn't let me record the session, so I scribbled as many notes as I could, trying not to break eye contact. Something powerful was transmitted in that eye contact. When I left his office, I went to the airport. I made sure I was a couple of hours early for my flight. I used that time to type up my written notes, remembering as much as I could. Then I expanded them. On the flight home, I added more. The next morning, I read my notes. I tidied them up. I rearranged them, and I added more. I tried to remember the stories. My few pages of written notes became 20 pages of typed notes. Throughout the next week or two, I read my notes every morning. I was getting them into me. I took all of the exercises that Steve asked me to do and all of the challenges he gave me and put them on a list. I worked the list. I did the work. That helped me create the immense value I got from my work with Steve. Jason Jaggard involved his company in his post game. He says, there are about 36 people in our firm on 3 different continents. We have a Wednesday morning meeting. Often after a session with Steve, the whole focus of that meeting was me talking about my experience. What did I learn? What did I see him do? What am I seeing now? It was like story time with Jason. And if I had gone away to a faraway land and I had come back with agents, it was like story time with Jason, as if I had gone away to a faraway land and I came back with Asian spices. And they were excited to hear. Coaches all over the world gathered to hear me tell stories about working with Steve. I extended an invitation to anyone in our firm to meet me at the airport and fly with me to and from Arizona. They had to pay for their own flight, but I paid for Uber and the meals while we were there. The flight to Arizona was like a pregame, what I wanted to get from my coaching. Then afterwards, they could be with me and experience the glow. After you work with Steve, there is this radioactive glow. Sometimes people really love being with me post Steve, and sometimes they really hated it. I came out of my session like a bat out of hell. I came out more decisive and raising the bar. It was like Red Bull. I have often been in meetings when people say, what's gotten into Jason? Someone would say, he had Steve yesterday, or he's having a Steve day. I always created results on those days, but it was sometimes an adjustment for the people in my life. In their book, Decisive, Chip and Dan Heath write about a tool for making good decisions called 10-10-10. The idea is to ask yourself how you will feel about your decision in 10 minutes, 10 months, and 10 years. The framework is appropriate in considering the coaching experience. What do clients feel, do, and experience in the hours, days, and months and years after sitting with Steve Hardison, the ultimate coach? Hours and days. It's not unusual for a client to walk away from Steve's office a bit dazed, wondering, who is this guy? Jaya Lalita relates, I just had an enthralling 2 hours. It felt like I had just made a pilgrimage to the sage in the desert. And nope, I did not see him as a sage before that meeting. It was the content, the heightened quality of our time together, the import of those 2 hours, and all that I walked away with. Most people experience a noticeable shift in their way of being. John Patrick Morgan says, I left his office walking on a cloud, feeling so confident in myself, so happy, so peaceful, so certain. Gary Mailer says, the thing my wife loves about my work with Steve is every time I come home, something is different. I'm not the same. She says, you transform every time you come back. You're more loving. You're more kind. Steve's coaching is dense. Often it takes time and thought to grasp all that occurred. Aaron Bennis says, Steve is able to look into my soul and know exactly what needs to be done. It's like he goes in, turns a couple of gears, twists a couple of things, and I come out saying, oh, and then a day or two later, it all settles. And it's like I'm a different person. And that's every session with him. Sometimes it would take me days to recover from a session, just for everything to settle down inside. Months. As the hours and days lengthen into months, clients lose the shell-shocked look. Possibilities have substance. New ways of being have traction. Matt Laughlin says, one of the most telling things about my time with Steve Hardison has been to observe the influence the 2 or 3 hours of my Be With session has had on my life a year after being with him. It's remarkable how many distinctions and crystal clear memories I have from our time together. Over a dozen stories or pivotal moments have come into my mind repeatedly. How many people leave you with so much after such a short encounter? He is just that powerful. I'm not referring to the personality of Steve. He is a unique character, to be sure, and his personality is a delight. But as much as I appreciate that aspect of him, I am referring more deeply to his quality of beingness, to the quality of his consciousness. Allison Watts shared some of the specific ways in which working with Steve has impacted her life. All of my relationships have improved. My relationship with my husband is significantly better because of who I am being and the loving actions that come from that. My husband and I are consciously creating our relationship together. We are working together to transform unhelpful patterns into helpful patterns. I am less defensive and more unoffendable in every relationship. I love that. I have significantly improved as a listener in every way. Specifically, as a coach, I show up even more loving and non-judgmental. I more powerfully invite people to see and step into their greatness. Years. Finally, the long perspective. Daniel Harner says, it is going to take the rest of my life to unpack everything I have learned while coaching with Steve. And Dave Orton states, it was an amazing experience over which I have not gotten over which I will never get. Through Steve's eyes. When asked, if I spend the day with you, how would my life be different? Steve responded, for starters, you would experience aspects of yourself that prior to our meeting you were unaware of. You would feel heard in a way that you may have never felt heard before. You would see things that you had never seen before about you, your life, others, their lives, and life itself. You would feel a sense of immense love and gratitude for yourself and for me. You would experience the distinction, presence, yours and mine. You would want to spend another day together. As you walked away and got in your car and drove home or flew home, you would think and rethink and ponder on what it is we created together, and you would say, what happened? How did that happen? How can I keep that alive in my life? Loving you, be blessed, SFH.
Beautiful. All right. So, in true fashion, since this is your first time joining us, Nasira, we usually will go back and invite the first reader to share whatever came up for them. So, we'll get you unmuted. And then, if you would like to share your thoughts, we'd love to hear you share about yourself.
Thank you. What resonated with me the most, during this reading, was 10, 10, 10, as how you're going to feel 10 minutes from now, and so on. So that, I think, forms from this point on the way I'm going to decide about how I do things in the future. So if I have this perspective, I feel that I feel as though I would be covered in a way. I would feel safe, and I know that I would have taken the right decision. What words came out to me the most during the entire reading, with Sachin as well as Kathleen, was intense. It is so intense. Everything that he does is so intense. The way he comes across is so intense. If he's angry, as well as the fact that, when he loves, and the way he loves, with all of his heart, with his entire being. And dense, whatever he gives out in a form of energy is so dense. That is something else that it was so qualitative in a way to describe an emotion. It was so dense. I found that really beautiful. New ways of being. I'm going to be mindful as to what I'm really putting out henceforth, because when I am with somebody, I will be mindful as to what I'm giving out and what they're experiencing from me as well. Consciously create. So I think this resonated a lot with me, because I'm in that phase of my life where I'm creating a lot of things. And when you say consciously create, I feel as though it's like a kind of like an intense kind of a dance, like a motion in a way where everything is in synchrony, and it's so passionate because of the denseness and the intensity of who you are at that moment. And I think what's going to come out from me, from what I'm experiencing, I think I could create a lot more beautiful, in my work, beautiful programs, beautiful relationships, beautiful clients, being a beautiful parent. I think that there was like this switch, and this is what this reading did for me. And there was something else that when he mentioned that he was, something about him is now less defensive, and you cannot, and nobody will be able to, what is the word for it? I've lost the word, but no one will be able to trigger him. And that again is another state of being that I would love to be in. And that's a summary of what I've experienced through this reading.
That's absolutely beautiful. You had so many wonderful insights that came from that. And even just listening to your share, the 10, 10, 10, like how is what we're doing right now going to impact us 10 minutes from now? How are we going to feel, 10 days, 10 hours, whatever it is, is it really going to matter? Like, what are we creating in that conscious creation, and looking at our lives and where are we going? What are we doing? Yeah, you just had so much insight, the intensity, the depth. You really took it to heart. And I just love that you brought that out. I just thought that was awesome. So thank you so much for that powerful share. And then I'm going to take it over to David. David, you're next. So we'll let you unmute.
Hey, I think I'm unmuted. So much in this chapter. It's interesting for me because I know at least a half dozen people who were quoted in that in the chapter. Talking about me, I had a income tax client who came to me about 5 years ago, and she had been reading The Prosperous Coach in the waiting room, and written by two of the people who were mentioned in this chapter, Steve Chandler and Rich Litvin. And I asked, I know these people. They coached me, and at one point I recommended that she get this book, and I spoke to her last week about something, because that book, I got that book you told me about, and I invited her to these sessions, but she hasn't come yet. But she was really taken by it. But for me, Steve is just so generous and extraordinarily intense. About almost a year ago, I had a situation where I had to consider whether or not to fire somebody who didn't do what they said they were supposed to do. And I'm typing to Steve on a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning, because I'm doing work that this other person was supposed to do. And I'm typing to him on Facebook Messenger. And before I finished writing, I get a call on Facebook, and it's Steve. And he says, I see where you're going. I'm about to go to a basketball game to watch my grandson play. I got 10 minutes. And if you listen carefully in this 10 minutes, you're going to get $200,000 worth of coaching. And I was like, all ear. I'm like, I had such an intense moment of presence. Like, I got to get everything that he's telling me. He's not telling me what to do. He's telling me stories. And when I didn't get it, he goes, I just gave you the answer. Are you listening? And it was like, but he was so generous in calling me at that moment. He says, thank you for trusting me with your, to help you. And he just called me just like that. And I wasn't even finished up writing, but he knew exactly where I was going with this. Another thing, I had a family member who had a lot of difficulties, and I had talked to Steve because I knew he was probably the least judgmental person that I knew. And I told him the situation, and he thanked me for trusting him with that. And he gave me some suggestions. And then a while later, a couple of years later, I asked if he could work with him, and he said, he's got to have skin in the game. I said, of course, I'm a coach. I know that. He shouldn't know. But eventually he agreed to do that when we were in Arizona. And I said, to be on time. He's not going to talk to you if you're not on time. And Steve made a special arrangement to talk with him, with this family member. Came back on. He came out, oh my God, I got to find 200,000. I got to work with this, and of course that sort of slowed down a little bit. But when he came back, it was like, I've never seen this family member this ablazed, this with such intensity. And I am so grateful for Steve for allowing this member of my family to have that coaching experience, and for sharing his coaching with me when I'm typing to him on Facebook and calling me and giving, he's just so generous and extraordinarily intense. And it's just an honor to I've met him once 10 years ago, but I've talked to him on the phone a number of times about various different things. And it's just, oh, I keep telling him the next time I'm in Arizona, we're going to have a Be With session. And next time I'm in Arizona, I will have a Be With session. I just don't know when that is yet. But it's, for me, the stories in this book that have helped other members of my family when I've relayed them to them. It's just, the coaching experience for me as a coach, I know like I'm not worthy, I mean, it's just, he's generous, loving, and intense. That's the only thing I could say. And I think that came across in a lot of the interviews that Alan B. Thompson had with a lot of these people. And I'm just honored to be in that orbit. What else can I say? So I'll leave it.
Well, thank you, David. I love that because it is just one of those so intense, and it's just comes from such a place of service, and he just is right to the point, and he's just nothing but love. He's like a big bear hug coming in, taking you on, and just loving you every second. So I think that's absolutely beautiful. And then we usually pop over and go to our readers, and then we have others volunteered. But did you have something else that you needed to share with us, Nasira?
Yeah. What I wanted to say was, can you guys hear me? Okay. So what I wanted to say was, what really happened in front of my eyes was that there's like a situation, okay? But the way the attention was brought, like to the pauses between each and every, in that situation, just the pauses that he brought and the meaning that he filled into each and every pause. It's like so consciously creating your next move just by putting out, by being aware of what you're putting out. And I really felt like sharing that because he just broke up an entire situation that we would be going through in a day, but then those simple pauses to just bring the meaning into everything that you're putting out. And that's what I thought was really beautiful. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yes, he just has a way of just like bringing it to the moment and just taking control and just serving powerfully. So yeah, breaking it down. And it kind of gives me like this mindset of like the intensity, like if you were that intense with everything that you did in your life, how amazing and miraculous would that be for you? Me, it's just like, oh my gosh, where am I holding back? Woo, what could I be doing different to really impact my life and all of those around me? Oh, so with that, I'm going to pass over to Sachin. So we're going to get you unmuted and then we're going to hear what you've got to share.
A lot. And if you know me, that probably won't surprise you because I like to talk. There's a lot I could say. So I'm just I'd first of all like to share a story. I had my first session with Steve last year in December. It was a Be With session, and it was to me it was kind of like a formality. Like I know I'm going to work with you at some point. I know I'm going to do a year. It's the first meeting of many, and we had our session. It was I had so much expectation on it, and I had built it up to be this thing where I thought he was going to flick me on the head, and suddenly I'm Buddha, like Neo in the Matrix, like whoa. And I was really disappointed. I walked out there like, what the hell? And anyway, I was like, okay, it's probably me. It's a good idea. Okay. So I say to him, yo, I wanna work with you for 6 months. And we talked about what it might look like, and then I said, okay, cool, I'll start sending you the money tomorrow. And he said, how are you gonna be doing that? And I said, what do you mean? He goes, are you gonna be flying over here? I said, no, man, I'll get an Airbnb, I'll move down the road and I'll come over here. He said, "Oh, okay. In that case, it's going to be weekly. You're not doing every other week." And I was like, "Yeah, but dude, that's like 200K for 6 months of coaching. That's a lot of money." He said, "It's ha money when you commit to it." And then my Uber pulls up, and I go back to the hotel. My head's spinning, like, ah, man, what the hell just happened? So I tried on this whole ha money thing for the better part of a year. Now I've moved over here. I'm in Scottsdale. I have weekly coaching sessions with Stephen. I had no idea. Like, if you were to ask me back then how you're gonna make it happen, I couldn't tell you. And then the part in the book, I kept laughing as I was reading this because we're like a couple of months into our work together, and it's just there's so much in this that's like, oh, I've been doing that, I've been doing that, I've been doing that. One of the things we had, Steve invited me over for Thanksgiving dinner. We eat the dinner, it was amazing, and we're cracking jokes and stuff. And he goes, "Why don't we sit down outside on like the hanging chairs?" So we're sitting down, Steve's sharing stories with me, and I say to him, "Coach, what do you see in me?" And he goes, "You're looking for something to do." And he goes, "I'm not that guy. I'm not the funnel guy. I'm not the strategy guy. I'm just going to work with you on who you're being." And it was like the biggest slap in the face. It was like, duh. That's like going to a bakery and asking them, "Hey, you got sausages?" Or like, "Hey, you got Japanese food?" And I felt like that's what I'd been doing. I've been trying to order pizza at a Japanese restaurant. And it was so like, it's just such a visceral experience, man. Like, I don't think I'll ever forget that. Anyway, like we're having sessions, and I think last week it really started to click, and I stopped taking notes, and I stopped looking for something to do. Well, I don't know if I have. I'm stopping looking for something to do. Pepperoni sushi sounds great. Thank you, David. I might actually go to the nearest pizza joint and ask them for that. I'll blame you if they throw me out. Yeah, like there's so many things I could say. I don't want to take up the whole time doing that, but the things that I've noticed about my time with Steve, and we're not that far in, is there is just an unwillingness to waver on being. There's no deviation into anything else. We're not covering a strategy. There's no 5 steps on this. There's no how-tos. I said to him one time, "How do I?" And then I caught myself like, "Oh, wait, let me get those words back. Let me put them back in my mouth." Because I don't like asking how-to questions or how do I questions, because I kind of feel like that's when the tusk is gonna come out. And I'll be like, "Oh, okay." And one of the things that's happened recently is just phenomenal. I'll be yeah, I try and get the how to, and I try and rephrase it into a who do I need to be kind of like, I'm trying to be clever about it. I'm trying to be a smart rat. Like, oh yeah, maybe I'll disguise my how do I question like this. But he's sharp, man. He knows exactly what the hell I'm trying to do with that. One thing that happened recently, so I'm really into kickboxing. The sport's done a lot for me personally. I was trying to kill myself for a long time, and the sport really saved me. Like, really, it was like, and I was a very angry child. I wasn't a child. I was like 21. When I found the sport, I was just really like, I had a lot of anger. And as time's gone on, I don't have that anymore. I just really enjoy the sport. I really enjoy the workouts, and I love the community. I went to watch a bunch of fights on the weekend. I never would have done this before, but what I'm getting from Steve, it wasn't a how. He didn't tell me to do this. It's just state of being stuff that we've been working on. I introduced myself to one of the guys who won his fight. I said, "Hey, I'd love to hear more about your story." We end up talking the next day. He wants to introduce me to a bunch of people. And I tell him, like, "Dude, I want to be the go-to mind coach for MMA, mixed martial arts. Like, this is what I'm committed to. I'd love to share with you what this is about and who I'm creating myself to be." We spent 30 minutes on the phone, and he said something like, "I knew you were genuine when you introduced yourself to me." And it wasn't just a British accent. And I started laughing. These little things are happening like everywhere I go, and it's not like there isn't a script for it. And one of the things that Steve said to me was, it's not you can't give someone a script on who do you need to be. And I used to have this higher and lower thing with Steve. Like, he's up here He can do these things because he's Steve. And then I started seeing, oh, hold on a minute, I have that with certain people in kickboxing class. Like, oh yeah, he can do these things and I can't. Or some of my friends who lift weights, like, oh yeah, they just practiced. And that's what he said to me. He goes, it's over there in you. Stop putting it on me. And dude, I cannot tell you how much value I've gotten just from that one sentence. It's over there in you. I come up with this funny little catchphrase, like, I do stuff and I say stuff in my own way, whatever, but there's a lot of, these things are not Sachin specific things. Everyone, and they're not Steve specific things. And this is the last session we had, he was shouting at the top of his voice. And I really related in the book, like, he can shout and love you at the same time. He's not telling me off. And he's not like, ooh, wagging the finger like a teacher. It's a very direct, focused laser beam on your being. And when he was telling me, like, it's not over here in me, it's over there in you. And it's like, it switched something in me. I don't know what it was. I still don't have words for it. I may never have words for it, and I'm okay with that now. Yeah, when he said that to me, it just started occurring to me. There was a guy driving into the apartment area that I live in, and there was like a spark on his wheel. I'd never seen that before. I'd never seen sparks coming out of someone's wheel before. It looked dangerous. So he pulls in, and I park my car, and I roll down the window. I'm like, "Hey, neighbor, I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but you got some sparks flying out of your tire." Next thing I know, we're like knee deep into a deep conversation about his dissatisfaction with life. I don't want to work this job anymore. I'm getting fat. I don't like the computer. And I'm like, what the hell's happening? It's just I don't have words for it. I just wanted to really share the thing of, like, it's not a Steve specific thing. This when he said, read it about you, don't read it about me. Straight over my head, bro. I'm not understanding a word of that. I'm just like, yeah, okay, whatever. But as I'm learning more about this, cultivating your state of being, this is making more sense to me on how does it apply to me? Like, how do I read this about me? All right, I've talked a lot. I just first, the last thing I'll say is, when we talk about who do you need to be, I used to, maybe it's me being immature, I used to take it on as like a challenge, like, oh yeah, who do I need to be? But now I'm seeing it more of like it's an invitation, you know. Who is the person that creates the conversation with the guy who lives over there, texts me his number and says, yeah, I'd like to come to kickboxing class with you? Who's that person that has that effect on people? What do they believe about themselves? What do they believe about other people? What do they believe about the world? And those three things have really changed for me. Like, what do I believe about me? What do I speak life into about me? What do I believe about other people? What am I looking for in other people when I speak to them? And what do I believe about the world? Man, those three things have completely changed. Thanks for listening.
That was an awesome share, and there was so much in that, and it just blows my mind. One of the things, like, just talking about, I'm in a bakery, but I'm ordering sausages, right? It's like, when we recognize that we are in a bakery and we have the best baked goods available to us, then it's like, holy crap, look at what I can do. Like, look at what I get. It's same with, like, who are we being? And we recognize it's within you. It's here all along. What we start to create. Yeah, I love that. That really resonated with me. And it's like you're looking for those answers outside of you and you bring them back in, like, wait, it's within me. Give you that loving smack. Oh, awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And then we're going to go to Kathy. We'll get you unmuted and then we're going to listen to your awesome share as well. Oh, we got to unmute you one more time.
There we go. All right, thank you. I guess the one thing I kept hearing everyone saying was about Steve's intensity. And I guess my realization on that, just being around him, is that his intensity, I think it's because he has so much clarity. So because he really knows who he is and what he's trying to get across to you, he can be extremely intense, whether it's a quiet intense or more of a loud yelling intense. And most of my experience with him is more on the softer, realm. That's just kind of how he relates to me. But I do, like, I look at that clarity, and that's like one of the pieces that I feel I'm really looking at developing in myself through his coaching. And when I first, I want to say this must have been maybe my second session, and he was telling me some story, and in my mind, I'm going, okay, so is he telling me, I don't really remember what the story is about. So is he telling me like he thinks I'm kind of dishonest, or is he telling me I should have been doing this, And so he goes through the story, and I'm kind of listening to it, but I'm kind of like thinking like, where is this coming from? And so I finally go, so are you, okay, so let me just get it. You're thinking I'm not being honest in this situation? And he goes, no, listen to the story. Just listen to the story. If I think you're being dishonest, you know what I'm going to do? You know what story I'm going to tell you? And I go, well, no, what? He goes, you are dishonest. That's the story. He goes, I'm going to say it directly to you. I'm not going to, make it pretty. I'm going to say it directly. So, like, I don't know, I just felt like all my nervousness kind of like was like, okay, we have that out of the way. So the story is a story to like listen to and just kind of see where it falls. And then if there's something that he wants to tell me, it's going to be direct. Or if I'm thinking, I will ask him that too. But usually he's just direct, lays it right out there, which I really love. The other thing in our coaching that that I feel has benefited me a lot, he called it GDI, gradual daily improvement. Like I went in there feeling like I had to, like really, I mean, I work, whatever he gives me to do, I do it. If he tells me write my document left-handed, I write it 4 times left-handed. I do whatever he says. But the idea of just every day, just work it. Like it's not about you're going to be transformed in a moment, which I guess, Sachin, you kind of said that too. I kind of felt that same thing, like, no, it's every day, and then it becomes like every hour, and then it's like every moment, like, oh, I notice my thought now. I notice like my thought was negative, like I can catch it and then I can shift it, so it's just those tiny little things over and over and over. And that whole idea of practice, it's just practice. Like he said to me, I don't do anything that you can't do. I've just practiced it a lot more. And that type of realization for me makes me feel, wow, it's so doable. And we have worked a lot on my document in like we took 2 hours one time and went over just 2 lines of the declaration of my declarations. And one of them was, I am that the creator created me to be. And he said, I mean, really, if you can just do that, that's all you really have to do. If you can just do that one line, just practice that one line, that's it. And you've done it all. And I was like, oh yeah, wow. When we were doing Be My Word, he had asked me all these different things. How can you be your word? Oh, with my husband, with my kids, when I'm teaching, with my grandchildren, I can be my word, I can be my word. And he goes, what else? And I don't know, I felt like I covered like everything. And he said, your document. I was like, he goes, your document, and my document is 39 declarations. It's 39 chances 39 opportunities to be your word every day. 39. And I was like, oh yeah. So the clarity, like his intensity created from clarity, like where I'm going at is like really focusing on that document. So it's so in my head that as I'm living, I can hear it. And that's what I'm coming to. And then the self-forgiveness process that you do in order to help you get your document, like then every time that negative thought comes in your mind, clearing that away so you have clarity, and then allowing that document, like those positive thoughts that you want to have in your life, allowing those to become stronger. So it's hard to say why what he does works. I think it's his clarity, his directness. I mean, years of experience, his connection, it's everything that just allows you to kind of melt all that. And I think melt is kind of the word, because to me, it's not yanked out of me. It's just kind of melted away to where I'm feeling a lot more clear in my life. So, yeah, so thank you. Thank you for letting me think about that and share it. Thank you.
That was beautiful. I love that. And I love the way that you said like melting away, because it's like we try to like force it. It's like, oh, it's like a gradual process. You know, we might be ripping on those big roots and trying to get them out of there, but there's still little pieces that it's just going to take a little bit of time to get out of there. A couple other things that you said, like quiet, intense. During the reading, I thought it was amazing when we go over the section where, you know, he's telling him, if you just lean forward a tiny bit, like you're already there. And that's that quiet intense. And then just holding that space and like the weeping. I mean, like, it's given me chills. But it's like, it's the screaming, the shouting, the yelling, the crazy, the fun, it's everything. And it is so intense, but it's all love and service. And I love that. GDI, that's gold. Loving that. So many amazing things. And just being your document, going back to that. I love that. So much gold tonight. We usually open it up to everybody at this point to start sharing, but since it's a longer chapter and we're a little later, we're going to go ahead and we're going to pass over to our friend Andrea, and then we're going to wrap this up. But we want everybody who wants to share to stay with us. We're going to share in the afterglow, and we're still going to get all the gold. So hang with us if you want. We would love to have it. But Andrea, take it away, my friend.
Woohoo! Okay, forgive me if my voice craps out. I kind of have the flu, so I'm on a lot of drugs. So great. What a beautiful, beautiful read and session. I'm so glad I got out of bed for this, because wow, Sachin, wow, and so powerful that you're able to tell us real time what's going on for you. Wow, that's so cool. And just I'm seeing you differently from even Mumbai. When we met in Mumbai, it's like, whoa, the dude is, you are on fire, you know? And yeah, it was really funny, because my question that I was asking myself was about presence. Who would I need to be present as a way of being? And I was writing down all these notes, and then you were saying about you know, that you stopped writing notes and stuff. And yeah, it's not about the notes. And yeah, so anyways, thank you for saying yes to read for us. And Kathleen, wow, I loved my voice is gonna go now, so I'm gonna keep it short. But I loved everything you said about melting away and the clarity, that that it's tangible. It's really tangible, like that presence, that focus. It's I really got it. So loved your share. Thank you. And oh yes, Nasira, thanks for being here for like the first time. It's really wonderful you can be here from India. Really wonderful that you read, and your share was very, very powerful. So welcome, and please come again. David, thank you. Are you still here? No. Okay. Thank you for your share, David. Yeah, and of course, Fari, thanks for jumping in today. I don't know if you know, but Fari, she's like, I love her, and she just jumped in today to lead. So yeah, and I love your name, Fari, and the proper pronunciation of Fari's name is Fari, not something else. She was joking with us. So love you, sister Fari. And Elizabeth, wow, what can I say? It's so good to be with you on these calls. Like we have yet to like be in person together. I'm looking forward to that. And okay, I said I was gonna keep it short, and also Team Tuck. Well, it's Team TUC. Tanya is always there, always. I said, I think my voice is gonna give out. I've been in bed all day. Can you cover? And she was like, yeah, like we got you. And it's like, I was like, but I made this commitment and everything, so I'm not going to crap out on the commitment, and so thank you for always being in our corner. And Carrie, thank you for being the tech and making it all run smoothly for us. And yeah, great. And thank you for you being here. This was a longer, really juicy chapter. So thanks for being with us. And it was a real blessing that you're here. You make the difference. And yeah, so thanks for your deep listening and shares. And so right now, since tomorrow is Amy's birthday, our Amy is her birthday. I would love for Maria has kindly offered to sing, because they're off of social media, so they might not get to see it, but they might see this replay at some other point. So Maria, would you please sing your heart to Amy in appreciation of Amy?
Of course, happy to do it. All right, I'm going to give it a little island flair. All right, so here we go. Ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dearest Amy. Happy birthday to you, and many more.
Yay!
Happy birthday, Amy. We love you so much.
We
so
love you.
much. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Maria. By the way, she's a really awesome hugger. I got to hug her at Mumbai, and we met also in the queue at London. So I've met her twice in person. So we hope you enjoy your birthday, Amy, and solve lots of puzzles and have lots of fun. And we'll see you in January. But before that, there's book reading for next, The Sky's the Limit, chapter 25. Yeah. So come back on Sunday if you can. It's 7 a.m. Pacific. So that's for you early birds. The Sky's the Limit. And we've got Nick Devlin, who's going to do an intro meditation thing, and Georgia Bazin, who's going to read for us. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from her. She's awesome. And I want to announce the Scottsdale Ultimate Experience, the 2nd anniversary. Yoo-hoo! So we get to see you all in person, and that's January 26th and 27th. So I hope you can make it. Amy is actually a keynote speaker. So we're really, 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 it's gonna be blow the doors off of, open our hearts, and be wonderful for sure. And that's January 26th, 27th. So please get your tickets if you haven't already. And the other one is in Birmingham, TUBE 2B24, in support of cochlear implants for kids that need hearing, May 25th and 26th. And yeah, there are all these resources that you can check out, including the YouTube channel, the podcast, Instagram, LinkedIn page, the newsletter, and the Ultimate Coach Extras. So there are all kinds of cool things you can check out. And so the most important thing is now our time off camera. So I'm going to invite you all to unmute and in a minute and wish everyone good morning, good evening. And we're going to go into the afterglow when there are no cameras and you know, it's carte blanche. So yeah, bachelor party for Sachin, and you know, and lots more. So I invite you to unmute and say good night, and join us in the after party. So
Good night.
thank you.
Wonderful.
Night.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. What a
Nasira,
beautiful
so
book
glad you
reading.
joined us.
Fabulous. Yes.
Hello, my friend in India. I love
We'll
you.
see you in the after.
Thank you for singing.
Thank
you, Sachin.
Pleasure.
Beautiful, Maria.
Bye,
Bye, Andrea.
All right. Love you guys. See ya.
Bye,
Happy
Renata.
birthday.
Wow.
Bye. Bye, Terry.